find the joy in all you do. Doesn't matter if it's good, bad, ugly. If you're starting off and you're just, let's say you're in the service industry and you're just the one that has to sweep the floors, I mean, I take joy in folding laundry and sweeping floors and putting up Christmas decorations. And, even if it's having to deal with K1s and investors that are mad, it's like, hey, you know what? I get to do this every single day. And this is a choice. This is something I feel good about. There's a lot of people that don't get to wake up or don't get to, do the things that I get to do. And so therefore, like, everything, whether or not, it could be viewed as good or bad, there's still something that, you can find in it that you can take.
Welcome to the Power Path Podcast, your new favorite podcast for short-term rentals, boutique hotels, and all things real estate. Enjoy the show in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Power Podcast, episode number 4. I'm your host, 𝗙ście with my lovely co-host, Jeremy Wirtz. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I am wonderful. Yourself?
Oh, dude, I'm splendid now that I'm seeing you, ain't seen you all week. So we have a lot to do today, but before we dive in, let's hear it for the dad joke of the week.
Dad joke of the week. Well, before I get into it, did you ask Allie the last week's?
No, because I couldn't remember. It was something about 𝗙cy, meaty or something. I couldn't remember it. I meant to text you. I just totally forgot.
All right. This week's dad joke of the week. What do you call a woman who's really bad at drawing?
A woman? I don't know.
𝗙cie.
My realtor's name is Tracy. I'm going to tell her that. Hold on. I'm going to have to write that down. Bad at drawing, 𝗙cie.
Yep. 𝗙cie.
Yep. I'm going to call her as soon as we get off here.
All right.
She's going to love that. And then I'm just going to hang up on her. Just drop it right there. So, all right. So we have a lovely guest today, Miss Beth Underhill. I actually called her the other day trying to get some education on student housing because she is a whip when it comes to student housing. And she's got 120 beds in this place. And I'm like, I've got a 7-room I need some help with. So she is a whip when it comes to student housing. She's got some private money stuff she's doing. She's got a crazy renovation that we're going to go into a little bit with another big name that's out there that will be on this podcast eventually. He will one day become one of my best friends. You just watch. So, all right. Well, without further ado, let's welcome to the stage Miss Beth Underhill. What's up, Beth?
Hello. How are you all doing?
Oh, doing splendid. How are you?
I am well, thank you.
Well, as always, it's great to see you. And of course, you've got a lot going on, which we're going to dive into. First of all, before we start, I do want to say thank you for that deal that I called you about with the student housing. It wasn't going to work with the student housing. The deal actually imploded with a lot of the stuff that we found at I don't know if you saw, I actually made a post about it.
I did. And I was like, okay, I'm glad that, it worked out the way it was supposed to. So,
yeah, there was a lot of drama we found.
Oh, no.
The fire marshal, the building department, and that developer. And he was in the area. But found a lot of drama. And I said, the partners were like, I don't really want any part of this deal. We were I think they were going to rip open the walls once we bought it. Force us to rip open the walls of the ones that were finished. And I was like, yeah, I'm not having good, vibes about this. And it's some childhood friends that were partners of ours on this deal. And his mom was like my mom growing up. And she's a huge realtor in the area. And she said, I don't think this is a good idea. Yeah. I was like, yeah. So we ended up just kind of backing up. We had a process, though. Like we said, if you do X, Y, and Z, we're going to do it. And they pretty much said, we'll do half of that, but we're not going to do the other half. I said, okay. Yeah. So, but that terminated. But I did learn a ton about student housing. So I do appreciate that very, very much, actually. Very much.
Of course. Yeah. It was fun connect again and catch up. So yeah, it was all good.
Jeremy doesn't know this, but Jeremy, we go way back, like
Way back.
a couple of years. We had a big wedding venue that we were going to try to take down.
That's right. That's right. I was disappointed that didn't work out.
Yeah, that's still for sale. He fired the realtor. It is still for sale to this day.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, it's $5 million, I think. It was for sale for $7 million. We got it under contract for like $5 million, and it was going to be like $150,000 just to fix the water situation, and then another couple $100,000 to fix the septic situations. It was crazy. Like, and then the seller went crazy and like cussed me out, cussed my realtor out at the time. Like, it was fired his real. It was really, really a mess. It was an absolute mess. But Beth was pretty much going to lead like the event side of the whole venue and like teach us a lot. So, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, little history there for you, Jeremy. I knew Beth before I knew you. So, yeah, me and Beth are closer than we are. So just anyways, we have a lot in store today. Yeah. I'm stoked for this one. I love talking to Beth, and yeah, I guess we'll just dive right in. So, Beth, let's high level. Who are you?
Well, let's see. That's a good question. I wear many hats, so it depends on the day. It depends on the hour. Sometimes it depends on the minute. But I am a mother, a wife. I'm a dog mom of 4 dogs. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm 56 years old. I hold powerlifting records, both nationally and internationally. I'm a serial entrepreneur, have been ever since I can remember. I've owned multiple businesses, including a catering business, a fitness studio, and then an internet-based business for women's golf apparel and accessories. My husband and I, we've been in multiple direct sale companies, but we've owned and operated an outdoor living space construction company now for over 25 years. So that's been our bread and butter. I like to golf. I like to lift weights. I love to read books. I love music. I like traveling, and love pasta, wine, and peanut butter, because I eat peanut butter every single day. And so I say that peanut butter is the glue that holds my life together.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So, what kind of peanut butter? Wait, what kind of peanut butter?
Well, generally it's I do some kind of natural peanut butter where it's just, ground up peanuts. But interestingly enough, a year ago for Christmas, I was gifted a big, like one of those big, like tubs, like the Home Depot size tubs and so forth, of peanut butter. I mean, it was all natural peanut butter. It's called For the Love of Peanut Butter. And someone sent me that like as a Christmas gift. And so I've been eating out of that for the last year, and I'm almost finished with it.
It hasn't gone bad.
What's that?
It hasn't gone bad.
You know what? It did say that like it has sort of an expiration date or best used by date, which was the end of October. And I'm like, okay, I'm probably still okay. But I told myself I really just have to probably let it go. I don't know how peanut butter can go bad, but yeah, I mean, it still tastes great. I'm just I'm kind of ready to move on from it, because I used to have this favorite brand that was it's called Santa Cruz, and I love the peanut butter. So I have a jar awaiting me to open it and start eating that again. So
no Jif. There's no Jif in your house.
So Jif used to be like my go-to brand, like back when I was, I don't know, first started on my peanut butter kick, and my sisters nicknamed me Jif. However, I will take like the Jif natural peanut butter, like the travel sizes. I'll throw that in like my backpack when I'm traveling. So just in case I need like something, in between, if I get caught somewhere, I can't, grab a snack, or, plane rides that, end up, maybe being delayed or whatnot. So I do have that, and that's when I eat Jif. But aside from that, I'm usually eating, I like the natural peanut butter. So.
I did not know any of that.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's when I was diagnosed with cancer back in 2015, I owned my fitness studio at the time, and when I made the announcement to everyone at the fitness studio that, hey, I have cancer and I'm going to have surgery. And so when I went into surgery, like so many of the members decided that they were going to make posts on, Facebook and so forth. And they all had scoops of peanut butter and they hashtagged it, #PeanutButterForBeth. And so it was their way of showing support, like as I was going through the journey. So it was, it's a huge part of like just who I am. So if anybody knows me, I mean, they know that that's just, I mean, if I had to be on an island with no other, only one food that I could, just have, and because, that's it, and I didn't have access to anything else, it would be peanut butter. I'd be like, I'd be fine with that. I could eat it all day long. So
are you okay to talk about the cancer?
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
Because I didn't know that. I didn't know any of that.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's not, I mean, I guess if you didn't know me back like in 2015, 2016, it's almost 10 years ago, right? So it's not something I actively talk about. And it's one of those things where, I'm very grateful that I'm on the other side of the journey. And I'm on the other side of the journey from the standpoint of that particular cancer that is, I was able to beat. However, I also was diagnosed with what's called 𝗙់, and 𝗙់is a genetic mutation which predisposes me to certain types of cancer, including the gynecological cancer that I had, as well as things like colon cancer, bladder cancer, stomach cancer, a lot of them that were related to, your, the digestional type, organs and so forth, as well as skin cancer and then lung cancer. So I do a lot of screenings every single year. I have a colonoscopy once a year, an endoscopy every other year, and that's where they like go down your throat. So all of that just, preventative. So I can just, continue to walk through life with a clean bill of health. And so I'm more conscientious about just, what I put in my body and yeah. So it's a life-changing journey, definitely. And, it's something that, you don't want anybody to ever have to go through. But if they do, then just hope and pray for the best.
Can I ask you some questions around that?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's not the real, that wasn't really the intention of this, but I am very curious because we have, my mother-in-law was diagnosed with cancer. It was roughly about 10 years ago, and she's beat it twice.
Mm-hmm.
Now. Yeah, she's beat it twice, and it's all oral. And she's still not over all of it, but she has beat it twice, and now they're going to go into do reconstructive stuff. Did you have businesses at this time?
I did. I had, my husband and I still had, of course, our outdoor living space construction company, and I had my fitness studio, and that was interesting. And I'm not sure why you're asking about if I had businesses, but I'll share a little bit of an interesting story. I've met a lot of people who have owned businesses that when diagnosed with cancers, a lot of times they won't they won't share with employees that they've been diagnosed with something because, or even if they're, if it's a customer service type, business, they don't share it simply because there's that chance that then they lose business as a result. Mm-hmm. And I did see some of that, because I chose to share it with people in a more, probably from a more empowering, inspirational angle. And what it ended up doing is I saw that, people were wondering well, is the business going to be an ongoing entity? Is Beth going to be an ongoing entity? And so people wrote me off and wrote the business off as a result. And so it did affect and impact, just ongoing operations. And it ultimately led to us making a decision about 1.5 years later to close the business.
Would you do that differently?
Knowing what I know now, probably so. The question really would be, could I have hit it? And so I'd have to go back and kind of take a look and kind of see like, would it have been possible? I mean, I wore some wigs for a little while, but honestly, the wigs were a pain in the what. And I preferred my baldness over anything. And I would just a lot of times just wear a bandana over my head. So I know I could have hit it, but the wigs at the time weren't necessarily the best wigs. So, I mean, they were okay, right? But you could tell my hairstyle would be different. People would be like, oh gosh, what'd you do to your hair? That would definitely be something to contend with. But overall, in terms of my level of energy or physical activity, I really challenged myself early on to figure out how I could be just as strong physically throughout the process. So that no one would be like really any wiser. And I recall when I first met with my my radiation doctor, he said, he goes, I know that, I've heard that, you're really big into your workouts and so forth. And he goes, I just want to let you know that you're probably not going to be able to, do as much or lift as heavy, going through, the chemo and the radiation and so forth. And to me, that was a challenge. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to show you. And so I was, I had convinced myself that I would be stronger, at the end of this than I was at the beginning. And so I had this challenge, and it was to do like X number of pull-ups. I can't even remember like how many pull-ups it was, but I specifically remember like after I was finished with all my chemotherapy and all my radiation, I made my trainer at the time. I'm like, take this video because I need to show it to my doctor that I am doing more pull-ups now and weighted pull-ups than I was doing like prior to this all. So, I will say this, when you are faced with mortality, it does bring out, something in you, your inner whatever. And for me, it was my inner Wonder Woman. And I just, was out to prove people wrong about certain things. But yeah, I mean, if I had to go back in time or if I had to redo it now, I probably wouldn't tell as many people like what was going on. I'd probably keep it a little bit more under the radar.
God, I love that. I mean, the situation that came out, like that's absolutely incredible. That's all I can say. That's awesome. So you think it's that pushed you into like being the weightlifter and the having the PRs and the records and stuff, or were you already on that journey?
It's funny because I had considered, doing some kind of competing. I wanted something that was a challenge for me physically. And I contemplated bodybuilding. However, I had battled an eating disorder for 26 years. And, with the thought of, being, very restrictive in the bodybuilding space and so forth, I'm like, I just don't think mentally that's going to be a good thing for me. I don't want to take steps backwards. So I explored some other options, and powerlifting was one of those options. And I found a trainer who, really, really like understood, what I wanted to do with this and how I wanted to compete and that I had goals with it. And so I've been working with him now for coming up in January. It'll be 7 years. Interestingly enough, the first time I had met him, I thought I was like physically fit and, I owned a gym, but my gym was more like group fitness. And so group fitness is different than if you're like doing, strength training and so forth. But, and I had been doing some training prior to that with another trainer. But when I went to have an evaluation, he's making me do all kinds of things and so forth. And when we get done and he's like, okay, he's like, you have some deficiencies. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about deficiencies? And he's like, I'm not going to let you compete for a year. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do then for an entire year? And he's like, we're going to build up your form, your technique. We're going to make sure that when you go into this, you're not going to get injured and you're going to have the best chance of success. And looking back on that now, I mean, I thank him all the time for that year that I spent, you know, just training for, I didn't even know what exactly, but I was training, and it was like, okay, when do I get to compete? And so it was finally like a year later that he's like, all right, he's like, pick out a competition and let's see where you're at. And I was like, okay. So, so yeah, it was, you know, they say sometimes it's all about the journey. And when I look back at that, it was really about the journey. So
that's awesome.
That's a great coach right there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny because the very first competition that I entered into, the host, Jim, the owner of that, he came up to me afterwards and he's like, he goes, wow, he goes, you know, I was really impressed with your form, technique, yada, yada. And he's like, you know, who's your trainer? So I shared with him, you know, who my trainer was. And he's like, you are so lucky. He's like, I know exactly who that is. And he is by far, probably within this region, the best trainer. And I was like, oh, okay, good. You know what? It just kind of solidified in my mind that all that I had gone through was totally worth it. And I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Awesome.
Oh.
So hit us with some numbers. What do you got for PRs?
So my best deadlift is 285. And my best back squat is 210. And then my best bench press is 132. So, and I weigh 96 pounds. So almost about 3 times, you know, I'm just right about 3 times my body weight on my deadlift. So yeah. So, and, you know, they like, interestingly about powerlifting, like once you get to a certain age, you become in, you know, kind of different categories, you know, which is great, you know, because I've been in competitions where, you know, I'm like the lineup, you know, I'm with 20-something-year-olds, even though we're competing in different age and weight classes and whatnot. But they're lifting things, and I'm just like, oh, to be 20-something again, you know, they make it look so easy, and their recovery is so much different. But yes, I'm very grateful for age and weight classes, because honestly, like it's just not fair. And they do have in powerlifting, which I love. They have non-tested, and then they have tested competitions, and I choose to compete, of course, in only the tested ones, because I want to know that I'm competing on the same playing field as everyone else, and that you know, it's not someone doesn't have an advantage, so to speak. So
yeah.
All right, Wonder Woman. Well, tell us about, okay, so that's pre-real estate, right? All of this is
that's not even real estate yet.
It's not real estate yet. Because we get into, like, you know, a lot of these questions are like, who were you before real estate? And I think we just conquered that. So what about today? What do you have? What does your portfolio look like? What kind of, I know you're doing a lot. So like, what does that all look like now?
Sure. So, you know, my journey with real estate originally started renovating houses. And we like to call ourselves redevelopers, primarily because we weren't really doing the traditional fix and flip, like lipstick on a pig and so forth. I mean, we were adding on 1,000 square feet. You know, like we did one house, we added 1,000 square feet onto it just to make it so that it went with the rest of the neighborhood, right? It was competitive. Same thing too, we took a ranch home, we popped off the roof, added a second story, and because that ranch home that was valued at about $300,000 or so sat in between an $800,000 home and $1 million home. So we brought it up to, you know, market. It ended up selling for $765,000. So, you know, we kind of positioned ourselves as such and realized, of course, that, wow, you know, this is a lot of energy. Well, we still had our outdoor construction company, and our outdoor construction company, I mean, we're doing projects of similar scope and nature. They're just all outdoors, and we're very good at that. And so we found that even though we produced some amazing homes and redeveloped some amazing homes, it wasn't really what we were, as good at. So I pivoted into the commercial space, attended an event for multifamily syndications. And that's when I really started, like, doors started opening up, started meeting just a ton of people that were doing a multitude of things, and ended up at, I was at an event. It was a 𝗙liche event, and met 3 gentlemen who were just starting out, forming a partnership, and they wanted some help with marketing, investor relations, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, you know what? Sure, I'll hop on board. I had no idea half of what I was doing. I had no idea, my husband kept saying, well, how are you going to get paid? And I'm like, I'm not sure yet, but just trust me. And so, about, 3 months into it, they're like, hey, we want to give you 10% of the company. I was like, okay, I'll take that. So we ended up with our first acquisition 6 or 7 months after. It was a 70 unit in Wichita. And then shortly after that, we got under contract our first student housing property, 126 bed student housing property in Milledgeville, Georgia. And so we began raising for that. And I was tasked with, putting together a pitch deck, finding a portal that we could use for raising capital. So I'm doing all of these things, and I'm like, okay, I've never really done a pitch deck. I have no idea what's a good portal, what's a bad portal. But it was all trial by fire, and I loved every minute of it, because honestly, that's how I learn best. You can show me, share me, I can read about it and so forth, but if I'm immersed in something, then that's where I learn best. And so it was all fun, it was great. And then the following year, we went on to put under contract and acquire 2 other student housing properties. One is a 108 bed in Athens, Georgia. Another one is a 252 bed in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And then recently we acquired another 87 bed in Milledgeville. So we have 2 properties in Milledgeville. And during that time, I raised capital for a hotel in Panama, Central America, as well as a couple of multifamily syndications. And I did that, these were raising capital. I was in between some of these other acquisitions, number one. And number two, a lot of times I find investors, if their appetite isn't for student housing, but we have a good relationship, they might ask me, like, Beth, do you know of anything else that, I could put my money in with some good operators so I can, maybe get some depreciation and so forth. And so that's how I was able to get involved in a few other projects. But to date, I have a little over 480 student housing beds. And you know what? I love that asset class. I didn't think I would like it. But interestingly enough, right around the same time that we started going after these properties was the same time that my daughter was graduating from high school and going off to college. So there was this, not just the learning experience on the acquisition side, but also the learning experience of being a mom who is having to make choices for her daughter for where she's going to live. Now, obviously, when you live on campus, that's one thing, which she did for the first 2 years. One was in a dorm, the second was in her sorority house. But this past year, she lived off campus. And so we were kind of looking at, like, okay, well, this is so interesting. She's living in just a house with 5 bedrooms, and I'm buying Class A properties that have 252 beds, which is a much different, much different housing, So yeah, it's been a good ride, and just been having fun with it. We're going to continue to look for more student housing acquisitions that fit our buy box.
What do you love about student housing?
Well, several different things. Number one, we like to purchase properties that are near top tier universities that have strong academic programs, and also, I would say just as important, sometimes if not more, strong athletic programs. When they have a strong athletic program, such as the University of Georgia or the Ohio State University, for instance, the Ohio State University. Yeah. Yes, I'm from Ohio, so therefore I know about the Ohio State University. But enrollment is is going to be more guaranteed, right? You know, you're not going to have that fluctuation. You saw a lot of like your smaller colleges and universities really struggle after COVID, but not some of these bigger colleges. You know, if you know, you've got strong athletic programs, sometimes you have kids that are like literally picking out schools just because they want to be a Bulldog or they want to be a Buckeye. So number one, we go after properties, you know, such as that are in those markets. Number two, the parents are guaranteeing the leases. The leases are 12 months. So unlike, you know, what most people think with student housing, that they're just 9-month leases, you're actually signing a 12-month lease. So regardless of whether or not your child is staying there for the summer, or maybe they have an internship and so they have to, you know, move, you know, to a different state or different city for 3 months, you know, you're still paying on that lease. And most people think that they're just academic leases, and that's not the case. And then on top of that, you have mom and dad or a guarantor that is signing on those leases. And unlike multifamily, for instance, you know, you don't have a guarantor, right? I mean, if I'm 25, I'm out in the workforce and I lose my job, you know, I still have to figure out a way to pay the rent. If I can't pay the rent, there's nobody backing me up unless I go borrow money. So it's nice to have mom and dad. You know, we have their credit cards on file, and, you know, they don't want their credit scores dinged for not taking care of a lease or not taking care of, you know, maybe if, you know, little Susie or little Johnny decides they're going to, you know, ding a wall or do this or do that. You know, I mean, hey, guess what? Mom and dad are going to cover, you know, those repairs. So that's another plus that we like. And, you know, the other thing too is with student housing, everyone moves in at the same time. And so you have leases that are all starting at or around like same day, same month, you know, same period, so to speak. So you know exactly how much your revenue is going to be. So therefore, you know, this is really a function of managing expenses. Okay. Unlike with multifamily, for instance, you might have 10 people moving out in December, 15 people moving out in January. You know, your leases are always expiring at different times. So therefore you always have to kind of keep working, you know, to make sure that you're filling up those units. And so it's a constant. Whereas for us, we have a lease up period, and generally it starts like almost as soon as the kids get back to school. These kids are signing leases for the following year. And usually we see that, you know, these properties finally, you know, finish off the lease cycle somewhere, or the pre-lease cycle, I should say, somewhere around, you know, February, March of the following year. So you get some sort of respite, you know, from having to worry about the lease up. But the nice thing about it is you just know every single month for the next 12 months exactly what your revenue is going to be.
Awesome. Would you consider it its own asset class, or would you consider it a form of, like, you said it was different than multifamily, but would you consider it a form of transient housing or multifamily, or is it really kind of its own?
I personally think student housing is like its own asset class, but if you talk to most people, I mean, they say it's a niche of multifamily. So, which is fine. I mean, but, you know, really, you know, what's really hot right now, of course, is co-living. And co-living, I mean, student housing has been doing co-living for God only knows how long, right? So it's funny when you hear like pad split and co-living, and this is a hot, you know, this is really hot. Well, you know, of course it's becoming more hot because it's helping to solve, you know, the affordable housing, you know, situation that's out there, which is great. But it's been around for a long time. I mean, co-living existed when I was going to school, which was back in the, you know, late 80s, early 90s. So this isn't anything that's new per se.
Yeah. Just like Airbnb, short-term rentals, vacation rentals have been around forever.
Exactly.
And now it's called Airbnb.
Right.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Okay. You said you had 480 beds currently, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how much y'all have in the portfolio. Do you have, like, are you focusing more now just on student living, student housing? Or are you still like kind of open to like, hey, look at this apartment, or, you know, whatever?
certainly open to that. The one thing that we have a team member who's actually comes from a very strong student housing background. For over 17 years, he worked for Dovetail and Landmark Properties, which are two of the largest student housing property management companies in the country, and also developers as well. So his background has really helped us have, or gain, I should say, a competitive edge when it comes to the acquisition of such properties. So for us, this is a niche or an asset class, however we want to term it, where we feel very comfortable. And, just to continue to build on that, I think is, they say the riches are in the niches. So, it's just, why not continue, down that path as long as you can, and as long as there are properties that are available.
Would you do it differently? Like, would you have started in student housing, or would you like if you can go back, would you do anything differently?
If I could go back, I never would have done any fix and flips. I would have started off in some avenue of commercial real estate. I feel like the stars aligned for me, and that everything happens for a reason, right? So in this particular case, to be involved in student housing, I feel very blessed. I don't know if I would have started, back in 2018 when we first started fixing and flipping, if I would have necessarily happened upon this group at that time, because they weren't even thinking about, coming together as a group. So who knows, where my path would have taken me. I could have been in industrial or retail or something else, totally different. But, I don't know. I don't know that I would necessarily, I personally would just like to get more student housing properties. That's ultimately what I would love to see. To go back in time and make any changes, I think I just wish I would have started sooner. That's all.
Okay. I have a lot of questions. Like, I could take this conversation forever.
Okay.
I really could, because I feel like you have two lives that have blended, right? Like, you have the studio. What about, and I'm just curious, before 10 years ago, before cancer, before the studio. So what were you before that? Did you have a W-2? Did you have what did you do before? So
when I first met my husband in 1998, I was actually an insurance agent working for John Hancock, and I sold long-term care insurance, of which I am working to get my insurance license again. So when I first met my husband, I was immersed in that. And he came to me one day and he's like, I really want to get back to my roots. And I'd like to get back into some kind of landscaping, something or another. And he originally, when he was 15, 16 years old, started a landscaping service. He eventually sold it to go work for his family's company at the time. And he's like, I really want to get back to my roots. Can you help me? And I'm like, sure. So he had an Infiniti QX4. We went out, we bought $1,000 trailer. He hooked up that trailer to this Infiniti QX4. And that's how we started this landscaping business. I mean, come on. He's pulling up to houses in an Infiniti QX4 with this trailer, and he's got plants and mulch and whatever else, So, so we started that, and ironically, there was a tornado that had come through Cincinnati shortly after we started this company, and it left, this one particular area, fairly devastated. And my husband happened to have some friends in that area. And so they were calling him up. They're like, hey, we need some help. We need some work done and so forth. And so that helped, kind of the business take off. So I helped him, build that business, and did that for a while. And then we started, as a result, we started throwing parties to entertain, and thank our clients. And once we started doing that, people were asking like, oh, who did all of the food? Who's your caterer and so forth? Well, it was me. I'm Italian, love to cook. I had been in the kitchen all my life with my mom. And so that got me thinking like, oh, maybe I could start a catering business. Like, why not? I wanted something for my own. Like, my husband seemed to find his passion again. So I thought, well, why don't I find mine? So I start this catering business, and it just starts growing like overnight as a result of just a few connections that we had made. And back in the day, I mean, we're talking early 2000, so you don't have the internet. Everything is word of mouth. You're not putting things out there on Facebook and so forth. So this business quickly starts growing. I bring on a partner, and we start like doing catering for Cincinnati Children's Hospital. That was our biggest account. And we're doing like massive size caterings for 500 people and so forth, all out of our house. And it was like nuts. We had 3 dogs walking around who like were always like underneath our feet because they just wanted scraps all the time. And
all you're doing is cooking all day?
And we're just cooking all day, and we're busting, we're just, food is going out the door. Well, then eventually I became pregnant, and my husband and I really had to kind of think long and hard. Like, could I sustain? We have a daughter that's coming into this world. So delivered her, went on with the catering business for 1 more year. And then, eventually we just decided, okay, it's just time to end this. We were either going to have to put the business like into a commissary, do something with it, or just end it. So we ended it, which was fine, worked out, but I still, kind of had this itch, like I needed to do something for myself. And so I love golf, and I thought, oh, you know what, I could, maybe have an internet-based business. That's when the internet was starting to become really big. So this is right around 2007. And I thought, why not do something with golf? And so I basically was a drop shipper, essentially. Had this awesome website, had a great name. It was called 𝗙liche Boutique, and just started, just really creating this great business. And then, interestingly enough, there was a competitor down in Florida, West Palm Beach area, as a matter of fact, and she had an internet-based business as well as a brick and mortar. And she was upset that I was kind of cutting into the pie of, her sales, her revenue, her, income, et cetera, et cetera. So she went to all of our mutual vendors and tried to get them to stop doing business with me. And I was like, okay, there's something not right about this. And what was funny is that I didn't really know that this was happening until I had an email sent to me by one of the vendors. And this guy just clearly was not thinking, because you know how you like forward an email and then you create an email? So he forwarded exactly what she like their communication. And then he created this email to me. So as I'm reading his email, I see, that down below there's more to this email. So I start scrolling, and I notice that they're having this entire dialogue back and forth via email, and she's asking him to stop doing business with me. She's like, I've been around for much longer. I'm a much better, customer. I, do this much volume in business with you guys, yada, yada, yada. So I took this to a lawyer, and I'm like, you know what? Something doesn't seem right about this. Do I have a case against her? And he said, absolutely. And he said, it's called tortious interference with business relations. And I was like, okay. So we sued her. She ended up settling the lawsuit through her insurance. And so I ended up with this insurance sum. It wasn't anything significant, but it was enough for me to say, okay, I think God's trying to tell me something here, and I need to move on from this. So that's when I moved on from that and opened my fitness studio.
Wow.
So you have
a lot of information that I absolutely love, and thank you for telling me that.
Sure.
So you've worn many hats, which is awesome.
Yes.
What hat did you want to wear when you were a kid?
I wanted to be an actress. Thought I was gonna either be on Broadway or in Hollywood. But for whatever reason, and I was always in like the summer theater productions, the school plays and so forth. And then when sometime when I reached like ninth grade, cheerleading sort of was more interesting to me than being in theater. And so I just kind of gave up on theater. And my mom, oh my gosh, bless her heart, she was so disappointed. She's like, I really, really thought that you were going to be on Broadway or you were going to be in Hollywood. And she always wanted me to go back to it. And I have considered it. So who knows, maybe one day I will. But it was right around that time, though, too, that, I was becoming increasingly frustrated with retail stores because I could never find anything that would fit me. I'm 4'11", so I'm short. So if I buy anything, generally speaking, it has to be altered. So I was thoroughly convinced that I'm going to open up, a chain of retail stores that are going to cater to people who are, under 5 feet. I mean, now it's, they have more like petite sizes and so forth. So I can usually find things that I don't necessarily have to alter. But that's what I had wanted to do. And then funny story, somewhere throughout, my college journey, I was dating this gentleman and he was like, I don't know why you're studying so hard. He's like, you're just going to be my wife and barefoot and pregnant. And I just was like, interesting. Whoa. Yeah, I just had made a Facebook post about it today, as a matter of fact.
You tag him?
It was one of those things that, just always had like stuck with me. Like, yeah. Am I just meant for that? And there's nothing wrong with obviously being a mother. I love mother and I love being a mother. I love all of those moms who are stay-at-home moms. I think they've got, a challenging job. Any mom has a challenging job, right? But I always knew that I wanted to do, something in addition. And I wanted, that I was built for, some really like cool, fun things. And so I felt like it was his way of kind of minimizing me. And I saw that a lot in the relationship. And I was like, I don't know.
Is that ever a joke now? Is that ever a joke in your house now? Your husband ever like pop off and say something like that every once in a while?
No, he does not. It's something that, from a mindset perspective, those are the kind of statements that can stay with you for a long time and really like affect your direction or make you feel like you can't do anything more than what someone else thinks.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say, like, is your husband still alive? Like, that would be the answer to, does he ever pop off with it?
Yeah. Well, luckily I have a husband who's been very supportive of me doing just about anything and everything. So, and he's been along for the ride. And, obviously out of all the businesses, he's enjoyed the real estate one the most because we've met so many amazing people. Obviously we see the generational wealth that we're creating, which is, what we're here to do. And then just the doors that it's open to so many other opportunities.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Where do you want to take this from here, Jeremy? I know we're kind of running low on time, but do you want to talk like really quickly about the project that you've got going on, the historic project? If you want to run through that just quickly. Yeah,
high level. There is an organization here in Cincinnati that basically older buildings that aren't being maintained by the owners go into receivership. And so there's a particular organization that is kind of taking these buildings and basically looking for people like myself and the partners that I have on this to go in and basically redevelop these historical buildings. So we happen to meet this gentleman who is in charge of this organization. And when I say we, I've got 2 other partners on this, and they're both part of Sub 2 with Pace Morby, and I'm part of Sub 2 as well. And so I met them I'm even trying to think of how we all got connected. It's sometimes like, you're not sure how you got connected, but you are. And so they had asked me, they're like, hey, we've seen some of your renovations, you want to be part of this? And I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. And so my husband and I, about 3 years ago, had finished another historical renovation, different in scope. I mean, this is a 3-family unit. It's got 3 units, multifamily, that we are either going to keep as multifamily or as condos. And we did a historical renovation that was a single family home. And so we started taking a look at this, and we were trying to figure out, like, how can we make this work? And, obviously the missing piece was going to be the capital. Like, where are we going to get the capital, to really do this? A lot of people, lenders and so forth, historical renovations, who really wants to bite onto this? Well, we thought we had someone lined up, and he ended up having a few hoops that he needed to jump through. And he's like, hey, the timing isn't necessarily the best. So one of my partners, he's like, you know what, I'm just going to put this out there in the sub 2 group, and I'm going to tag like 100 people. And he ended up tagging 𝗙ce's team. And we ended up with a response from their head underwriter. His name is Bo. And so then we hopped on a call and we shared the deal with Bo and what we were doing with it, from budget to timeline to like everything. And Bo was like, hey, we think we might want to partner with you guys on this deal. And he's like, let me do a little research. Let me do some assessing. Let me talk to 𝗙ce, and I'll be back in touch. So a week later, we get this email, and it says, yeah, we're in. Like, what do we need to do? What are the next steps? And we thought to ourselves, oh my goodness, this is crazy. So, yeah, as a matter of fact, we're meeting the architect at the property to walk through it, start to take some measurements, and just kind of understand like what we can and can't do. I mean, I have a vision for what I think we can do with each of the units. I just need to know if it's possible or not. So my role in it is really, usually I'm the one that's kind of designing the layout and then picking out, paint colors, fixtures, you name it. The thing that I do like about this is that because it's going to be multifamily and or, possibly condo, we can keep it very vanilla. So I don't have to really think too long or hard on what the fixtures are going to look, what they're going to be or what they're going to look like and so forth. Whereas for the single family homes, that was always more of a challenge, right? Because, you're trying to think about, the end buyer, what are they going to like? And oftentimes, with our single family renovations, we had a realtor that we always dealt with. And one of my investors, he's like, why do we always have to deal with a realtor? Why can't we just sell this ourselves? I'm like, you know what? I never want to hear the feedback that, a potential buyer, gives as they're walking through. I said, I honestly don't want to be the one to hear that, as the person who designed this. Like, I always liked, kind of having that push
buffer.
Yeah. And, more often than not, like there was always, favorable comments, right? But sometimes you would hear like, well, why did they do this? And I'd have to, give my logic to the realtor. Can you pass along this to, so anyways, with this, I really like the fact that it's going to be fairly straightforward and easy, and really the bulk of the work is going to be on our contractors versus myself. So that's nice.
Well, that's amazing. You know what I like about, so I have a really good friend, Bobby, was just with 𝗙ce for like a week. He just got back, I think, yesterday. Or the day before yesterday. I talked to him on the phone yesterday, and they did like a 7-day, they do like these challenges. Like we have some challenges that we do, like a 90-day challenge inside PowerPath. Right. The short-term rentals, picking up codes, deals, that kind of thing. But he's doing this challenge that is like, it's all about wholesale. And I think it's called Nobody's Left Behind.
No one left behind. Yeah.
So there's like 106 teams or something, like 101 teams doing this thing. Right. So Bobby was with him for a week, and I was like, look, I want to do something, like I want to spice up our 90-day challenge. So like in our 90-day challenge, it's all about picking up co-hosting deals. And I've got a board, like we're almost done. We got 3 weeks left on this one. And we've produced, like, if everybody signs the deals that they have, like either in the works with the deals they've got. It's $600,000 a year in co-hosting contracts been produced out of this challenge.
Nice.
And I was like, tell me how 𝗙cies challenge works, like what he did. So he tells me about, obviously you know what it is. Like there's a closer, there's an underwriter, there's transaction coordinator. I was like, how do we disrupt? Like that's disrupting the wholesaling business. That's disrupting people's lives.
For sure.
I said, how do we disrupt the co-hosting and the management industry? And so I'm trying to figure out like how to take a similar model of like you have the closer, you have the underwriter, and insert it into the management side. And I just threw it out to the group in our Facebook group or Facebook Messenger app for whatever you want to call it, the channel that I made for this 90-day challenge.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what I'm thinking. And people were like, oh my God. I was like, I just want to test the limits on what can and can't happen. Like, I just want to test it because nobody's doing it. And I was talking to Bobby. I was like, nobody's doing what 𝗙cie is doing. And he's like, no, nobody. And 𝗙cie even said, he said it this week. He's like, it's too hard to manage. It's too hard to coordinate because you have people like drop off. You have people who, are doing well or whatever. And I was like, I want to make it where, I've got on the board, like I've got everybody's name written here. There's a couple of people who only have leads. They haven't signed anything. And I'm like, what is your struggle? And they're like, well, I don't like making phone calls. I'm like, okay, interesting. What if I made the phone call? What if I was like the closer, but up front? Like, and everybody was like, that's an interesting idea. I was like, let's try it. We got 3 weeks left in this challenge. Let's just try it. So somebody sent me like 97 leads to call yesterday.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, let's do it. Like, it's all live. I'll call every single one of them because I can have a conversation with anybody.
Right.
That's like where I'm really, really, really good. So we're going to try. Like, I love that he's just trying to like test these, like, and it's really about like people getting deals. And I love just the way he's doing it. So like for PowerPath, like my goal is 20,000 people.
Nice.
In PowerPath. #1 real estate community in the world for like short-term rentals, hotels. That's the goal. And he's like going that way with the creative finance and the wholesaling. Like he's going that way.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I love what he does. I watch his stuff all the time. That's why I said at the beginning, like him and I are going to end up being best friends one day.
You will.
He just doesn't know it. I just need to manifest it a little bit more. So, because I want to do the same thing he's doing, only for short-term rentals and hotels.
Yeah. I like it.
We'll see.
Keep me posted on that. I mean, I'd love to be involved, especially with hotels.
I know it. Everybody, right? Everybody wants a piece of a hotel. So, all right. Well, I appreciate that. We've got a couple of questions. Jeremy, you want to take her down the last bit of questions, and then we will call it a day.
Yeah. So before we get to the last couple of questions, you've had a wonderful journey so far in your life. Is there one like motto or saying or kind of philosophy that you've had throughout, your entrepreneurial journey and life challenges?
Yeah. Find the joy in all you do. Doesn't matter if it's good, bad, ugly. If you're starting off and you're just, let's say you're in the service industry and you're just the one that has to sweep the floors, I mean, I take joy in folding laundry and sweeping floors and putting up Christmas decorations. And, even if it's having to deal with K1s and investors that are mad, it's like, hey, you know what? I get to do this every single day. And this is a choice. This is something I feel good about. I'm helping people. There's a lot of people that don't get to wake up or don't get to, do the things that I get to do. And so therefore, like everything, whether or not, it could be viewed as good or bad, there's still something that, you can find in it that you can take that's, joyful, and just remind yourself that I get to do it.
I love that.
Love it. I wish we could just stop it right there.
Yeah. All right. I'll see you later.
That was awesome. That was awesome. All right. So last few questions that we have. What do you believe is your superpower?
Oh, my superpower.
Outlifting these 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
What?
Hey, before you answer that question, do you know what Burn Boot Camp is?
Do I know what?
Burn Boot Camp.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Allie has been going there for a while, and then I joined it.
Okay.
I've been going there for a couple of months. Well, maybe not. Maybe 2 months.
Okay.
And And I was like heavy lifting. And then I went to this burn boot camp, and it's like that group. It's like personal training in a group setting.
Yep.
Threw up day one. And I was like, I'm getting outlifted and outbeat by all these women in there. And I'm like, these women are beasts in here. This is insane. There's like 3 guys that go to the gym, maybe 5 guys that go to the gym. And I was like, I told Allie, I was like, this is rough. Like, first day though, threw up in the bushes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We had athlete games this weekend. So like we competed. And so I did it just like compete for myself.
Yeah.
We got, Allie and I both did it. We competed for ourselves just to like to finish. We got done and I was like, we were like, next year we're going to compete for real. Like, we just want to see if we can do it. It is freaking hard. So yeah.
They have a good business model. They actually, the franchise here in Cincinnati, took over my former like fitness studio space. I mean, it was perfectly set up for them. There wasn't much that they had to do differently other than paint everything blue and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I know that it's been hugely popular, and I'm happy to see their success. The location, you know, it was always a good location because the foot, not the foot traffic, the traffic count was so high, you know, going past there. So yeah, it's a great business model, and glad that you're enjoying it.
Yeah, we really like it. We got done. You know, I always hit this time of podcast. Jeremy always has to send me the link, and we have to go from there because I'm like running from the gym to the house, getting ready, and then we jump on. And sometimes I'll show up, my face is still red. Yeah. Like, I think it was like 2 podcasts ago, my face was still like bloodshot red. I was like, you're gonna have to give me a second.
Yeah,
that's funny. That's
but
funny.
Anyways, go ahead.
I would say my superpower is that I'm a doer. I'm just someone like take action. Like, I always believed that long time ago when my husband and I were involved in one of the direct sales companies, there was this gentleman, I still hear him in my head, you know, massive action solves all problems. And I'm like, okay, like, you just have to just go do. Like, instead of, there's sometimes people that tend to just ponder and think about things, and I'm just an action taker. So I feel like that's really my superpower. I want to see progress. I want to see forward movement, and I don't like things to not be tied up. You know, it drives me nuts. So I like to make sure that, you know, everything is like, you know, if it's at the end of the day, if it's at the end of the week, if it's like before we leave to go on vacation, like, I want to see these items like done out of my life so I don't have to think about them anymore. So I would say it's action taker, doer. That's my superpower.
I think it's interesting. I want to say it was Pace said it. Said, and I think Jeremy and I are both the same way, like massive action, like just do it and figure it out. There was I want to say it was Pace, something on the social somewhere. I started watching a lot of his stuff, and I like really gravitate because he's like, I don't know. Anyways, it was something like, you know, by the time that you start taking action, I've already tried it 4 times. And by time 2, I realized that the first 2 tries didn't work. Try 3 was successful, and try 4 was a better way than the way I was taught. And then you're just picking up the hammer, and you're just like, you are just figuring out compared to me. Like, you explained it like that, and I was like, that is like, the first 2 tries, they were completely wrong. We screwed it all up. The 3rd one was successful, and the 4th one was a better way that we created than the way we were taught, versus the person sitting next to you hasn't even picked up the hammer yet. Yeah. I was like, that is so powerful. It is. Be able to like have the self-awareness saying like and I think a lot of us that are like in a room like this, we're all the same way, versus somebody that lives next door or somebody else in a group that's not having any success or whatever. Like, it is really cool to have the self-awareness that's how a lot of us are, like in a room like this. And when I heard it spoke like that, I was like, that is so freaking true. Because I screw up a lot on the first couple tries. A lot.
Same.
And then, and then it's like, by try 4, we did it better than our mentor did.
Right.
So I love that. I absolutely love that. I think we're family. I think we're related.
I think so too.
I mean,
all right, Jeremy, go ahead. Sorry.
All right, so that's your superpower. If you had a real superpower, what would that be?
Real superpower. Real superpower. Like you mean if I could fly or if I could, you know? Yeah.
What would you want it to be? Yeah.
What would I want it to be? Probably flying. I think it would be flying. Yeah. I mean, I would love to just be able to be above and just be able to see everything and just, yeah, have that bird's eye view, so to speak, and just be able to take it all in. I mean, I think that our world is just so incredibly fascinating. The buildings, the water, the land, the mountains, you know, just everything that we built over time. It just, to me, I'm in awe of it. So to be able to fly and to be able to see it, not from an airplane, but like I'm actually up in the air and you know, like going around the world or whatever, you know, I think that'd be amazing. So.
I love it. I wanted to be a fighter pilot when I was a kid, so I'm right there with you.
There you go. Yep.
He's never going to let that go. He says that on every podcast.
I do not. Come on now. What's one purchase under $100 that's made the most impact in your life in the last year?
Well, peanut butter. Hello. I mean.
No. You didn't buy it. You got bought.
Well, I didn't, but I did buy a jar that I'm waiting to open, so that will make an impact in my life.
So peanut butter. Final answer?
Oh, I don't know. Glasses. Glasses that I can see out of. I mean, just it's amazing. You know, and what's interesting is I'm actually going through this coaching program that talks about like seeing your life through the right lens, you know? And so I always think, you know, when putting my glasses on, you know, just how much more, you know, because my eyesight, once you turn like, you get over 50 and the eyesight really just starts going downhill. But it's just amazing, you know, like I've needed stronger glasses this past year. And it's like, wow, once I got the stronger glasses, I just felt like I could do so much more. Like it's awesome. But going back to that lens, you know, just seeing yourself through different lenses. And I feel like it kind of almost gave me, you know, once I got the more powerful glasses, it gave me like a new lease on life as well, too, about how I see myself and what's going on in my world. So, you know, sometimes we do need stronger glasses to view ourselves and to see like the good, the worth, and who we really are and value ourselves more. So glasses.
The last one. No, it wasn't the last one. There was one. Jill said she bought this little stress ball.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And it was like $15 or something on Amazon. Yep. She's sending me the link so we can post it. It's got like these little nipples all over it, and it breaks in half. And she was like, "Yeah, like I use it every day." And I was like, "Where's it at?" She was like, "It's right behind me." And she like turned around and she walked over to her nightstand and picked it up. And was like, "I don't go anywhere without this thing." And I was like, "Wow, you're like that's legit."
Yeah.
She's like every day, every single day. She like massages her feet with it, her hands, her shoulder. I was like, "Send me the link to that," because like I'm sure there's a lot of people that want that. I was like, you got to create an affiliate link.
There you go. Yes.
He's selling these things. So, you know, okay. Anyway, sorry. I detoured that.
Last question we have for you. What is one thing that you've splurged on in the last year?
One thing I splurged on in the last year. Ooh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of what. Oh my gosh, nothing is coming to mind. That's so bad. I'm sure I splurged on something.
A car, a meal,
shoes.
Shoes.
Vacation.
No. I mean, like I feel like I'm not like no. I haven't really splurged on too much in the way of clothes. No new vehicles. I I mean, we redid our bathroom. I don't know that that's a splurge though, because we wanted to do it.
New top of the line lifting belt, or?
No, I'm still using my same lifting belt. Probably like, I would say going to taking my daughter to New York City, just like actually last month. So she was on her fall break, and their fall break was really late. And I just happened to have like a weekend, and she's like, hey, can we go to New York City? And I was like, you know what, like, why not? Like, I don't know if we're going to get to do this next year. I don't know, when we can, so, it wasn't in the budget, right? Hadn't really like thought like, hey, this could work out, not work out. Tickets, of course, last minute weren't the cheapest, but I did have an airline credit. So I was like, okay, well, I have an airline credit. That's going to help. So we ended up going. We went and saw Wicked, the play Wicked there on Broadway. So that was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
And
you're like, that could be me right now.
That could have been. That's right. That's right. And I did play in one of my roles. Back in summer theater was the Wicked Witch of the West. So it could have been me. I know. So anyway, so we went, let's see, we walked 25,000 steps, one day all throughout the city. I mean, our feet, our legs, they were tired, but it was a great time. And it was just really fun to, I don't know, to just kind of be more spontaneous, right? Like not necessarily plan it, just go do it. And I want to have more experiences like that. So I would say that was my splurge.
I love that.
Awesome. Yeah.
I love that. People I've heard travel a couple of times now for the splurge question.
Yeah.
And, you think like everybody's like, well, I have to budget for so many vacations a year. But like once you get to a certain point, it's like, just go somewhere.
Just go.
It doesn't even matter. Just go.
Yeah.
So we want to go to New York as well. I've never been.
Oh,
my daughter wants to go.
City. I love that city. And interestingly enough, so we stayed at this hotel, and normally there's one particular hotel that when we've gone, we've stayed at, and it was not available. And we had no idea like why it was so busy on this particular weekend. But little did we know that there was also some presidential rallies happening in New York City that same weekend. It was like, oh, okay, this is why it's a little crazy and hectic around here.
Hectic, yeah.
So anyway, so we stayed at this other hotel, and oh my goodness, I mean, we just had, they're advertising like we have cocktail hour. Well, the bartender didn't show up, so there was no cocktail hour. Then they were advertising that they have breakfast. Well, the cook didn't show up, so there was no breakfast. And we're just like, what is going on? Like we couldn't get our air to work, and and I like to sleep like with. I like to sleep in cold temperatures because I sleep so much better. Same with my daughter and so forth. And we could not get anything to work. And so I had to go have a conversation, with the front desk management and so forth. So we ended up getting one of our nights for free, and we were staying on a Saturday night and a Sunday night. So the Saturday night was more expensive than the Sunday night. So they gave us the Saturday night for free. And I'm like, well, that Saturday night just got done taking care of all of our other expenses,
Yeah.
So we ended up not spending as much thanks to the hotel not having bartenders and cooks showing up. And I mean, it was kind of crazy. So, when you are expecting and you're advertising certain things, I mean, they don't tell you like, hey, I'm sorry, we don't have a bartender this evening when you check in. You're like, okay. So, yeah. But, those are the moments that you look back, you laugh on them, and you're just like, oh, remember when, and have a good time.
Remember we showed up to this place and they had nobody on staff?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm with you. All right. Well, that will conclude this.
Okay.
I greatly appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yes.
It's always fun talking to you. How do people find you?
Well, let's see. You can email me, Beth at investingwithbeth.com. You can go to my website, investingwithbeth.com. I'm on TikTok and Instagram at investingwithbeth. You can text me, call me, 513-470-1078.
Hey, there we go. There
Phone's
we
blowing
go.
up.
Okay, I'll get all that
see about
stuff.
that.
Do what?
We'll see if the phone blows up.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not sure when this one will drop, but I'll let
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
I'll get your contact info as well, and
Okay.
we'll put it in the show notes. And then yeah, I greatly appreciate you being here. And with that, Jeremy, you want to take us away?
Yeah, thank you, Beth. It was wonderful. Everybody out there, since we are 2 days before Thanksgiving, have a wonderful Thanksgiving 2024, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
See ya.